All right, we're going to go way back today, all the way to the 7th century, for a pretty intense story. It's all about conviction and about the absolutely brutal price one man was willing to pay for an idea.
So I want you to picture this. It's the year 662. An elderly monk named Maximus gets dragged before the authorities in Constantinople. And for his crime, he's publicly beaten, and then they cut out his tongue and they cut off his right hand. I mean, just imagine that. And here's the kicker. This wasn't for murder or theft or anything like that. It was the price he paid for simply defending his beliefs.
So you gotta ask, why? Why would anyone anywhere endorse something that horrific? Well, the answer is as simple as it is staggering. He did it to defend an idea. Which of course begs the question, what on earth is an idea that's worth that kind of price? Okay, let's dive in and find out. So let's meet the man himself. This is Maximus, a theologian and a monk who lived from 580 to 662. History knows him as Maximus the Confessor. And, confessor isn't just a part of his name, it's a title. It was given to people who suffered heroically for their faith, but who weren't actually executed for it. So his entire story, his unwavering defense of what he believed was the truth, it's right there in his name. Now, to really get what's going on here, we have to understand the heart of the conflict. And like so many of these huge historical dramas, this was never just about theology. Oh no. This was just as much about politics and raw imperial power. Let's set the scene. Back in the 7th century, the Byzantine Empire is in some serious trouble. I mean, it is teetering on the absolute brink of collapse. You've got invaders coming at them from all sides, the Persians, the Avars. For the emperor, unity wasn't some nice-to-have political goal. No, this was about pure survival. And in that kind of world, a religious argument, well, that wasn't just heresy. It was basically treason. It was a crack in the very foundation of the empire. So in a desperate attempt to create that unity, the emperors started pushing this new doctrine. It's called monothelitism. Bit of a mouthful, I know. But the core idea is this. They said that Jesus Christ, while he had two natures, divine and human, he only had one will, a single divine will. You see, this was supposed to be a theological compromise, a way to get all these different Christian factions who'd been fighting for centuries to just finally get along. And right here, this is where you get this epic clash of worldviews. On one side, you have the emperor, Constance II. His number one goal, political unity, period. And his method was basically to shut everyone up. He issued this edict called the Typos, which literally forbade anyone from even discussing the topic. And on the other side, you've got Maximus. His goal wasn't political unity, it was what he saw as theological truth. And that meant defending Christ's full humanity, because as he saw it, our very salvation was hanging in the balance. So let's get into it. What was Maximus's big argument? I mean, why was he so obsessed with this idea of two wills? It sounds kind of abstract, right? Well, he actually explained it with this fantastic analogy that really makes it all click into place. He called it the fiery sword analogy. Think about it like this. Step 1, you've got iron. What's the nature of iron? Well, it cuts. That's its operation. Step 2, you've got fire. What's the nature of fire? It burns. That's its operation. Okay, now for the cool part. Step 3. When you heat up a sword until it's glowing hot, you get a fiery sword. It's not some new third thing, right? It's still one object, a sword, but it has both natures, and so it does both things. It cuts and it burns. Maximus was saying that's Christ. Two natures, human and divine, united in one person, each with its own distinct will and operation. And look, for Maximus, this was not just some nerdy philosophical debate. This was everything. This was the whole ballgame. His logic was actually pretty straightforward. If Christ didn't have a genuine human will, the ability to choose, to fear, to obey, then he wasn't really fully one of us. And if he wasn't fully human, how could he possibly heal and redeem our broken humanity? So in Maximus's eyes, the emperor wasn't just wrong, he was endangering the soul of every single person in the empire. So you can see how this was going to end, right? Maximus's powerful arguments and his absolute refusal to back down, well, it put him on a direct collision course with the emperor. He was just one monk, but his voice was shaking the very foundations of imperial policy. And this conflict, it just kept escalating for decades. Yeah, this was a really slow burn. It played out over nearly 20 years.
It really kicks off around 645 when Maximus wins this huge public debate, even converting a former high-ranking official to his side. By 649, his ideas are so influential that a major church council in Rome condemns the emperor's doctrine. Well, that was a direct challenge, and the empire's response was swift and brutal. In 653, he was arrested for high treason. He was tried, exiled, and pressured to recant. He refused. But the empire, they were far from done with him.
So in 662, they bring the old monk back for one final trial. They even try to tempt him, offering him honors and prestige if he'll just accept the emperor's decree. He refused, and instead he delivered this just stunning rebuke to absolute power. He said, "The emperor has no right, as a layman, to decide on questions of faith. That is the task of the church." Wow. I mean, that single sentence, that's the heart of the entire struggle, isn't it? The freedom of conscience against the power of the state. And for that defiance, he was sentenced to that brutal punishment we talked about. He was exiled to the far reaches of the Black Sea, and he died shortly after. He was silenced, seemingly forever. But the story doesn't end there. So Maximus died, broken and forgotten, seemingly defeated. But his followers, they preserved his writings. His powerful arguments lived on. And then something just remarkable happened. Only 18 years after his death, a major gathering of church leaders, the Sixth Ecumenical Council, met in Constantinople, the emperor's own city. And they officially condemned monothelitism and affirmed Maximus's doctrine of two wills as the orthodox belief of the church. The man was destroyed, but his idea had outlived the emperor who tried to silence it, becoming this timeless example of defending truth against coercion. You know, the story of Maximus the Confessor really forces us to ask a question that just echoes through the centuries. What is the line between compromise for the sake of unity and conviction in the face of power? It's a question that's just as relevant in the halls of power today as it was in a 7th century courtroom in Constantinople.